Hey guys. Tonight we journey beneath a pale silvered sky where wheat fields shimmer like oceans of spun gold, and the air hums with anticipation. You probably won't survive this without feeling your eyelids droop. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments so we can see who's tuning in from midnight fields and who's counting sheep at dawn. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wander through gentle hills that ripple like the back of some sleeping giant, each stalk of barley glinting under the harvest moon's glow. You trudge forward, feeling the cool air whisk across your cheeks, carrying the scent of Earth's bounty, and maybe a stray sheep's less bountiful offering. Demeter, goddess of agriculture and the grand provider of grain, stands just beyond your peripheral vision. Her presence so subtle you almost think the whispering wind is her soft voice. In classical myth, Demeter taught humanity to cultivate wheat, ushering in the Bronze Age with newfound stability and record harvests, a mainstream historical fact that changed how people lived forever. As you press on, the fields grow strangely still. You pause, noticing that no owl hoots, no cricket chirps, only the gentle susurrus of rippling grain under moonlight. You might think you're alone, but legend says Demeter sometimes walks among mortals in disguise. Fringe scholars even suggest she carried a jar of honey-infused barley to test village devotion, a quirky tidbit that raises eyebrows at every symposium. Historians still argue whether this jar was a symbol of life's sweetness or a warning of its fragility. You push aside a heavy stalk and find a weathered stone plinth at the field's edge, carved with an inscription so worn it could have been moonlight's doing. The words speak of hidden dances of renewal, but no clear translation survives. You brush away moss and giggle softly at your own impatience. Why can't these ancients just leave Google Translate logs? 3 dry jokes tumble out as you crouch. I mean, if you can move mountains of grain, you can keep a website up, right? Maybe Demeter was just a really picky librarian, or the original influencer testing her followers' engagement. Beyond the plinth, a faint melody drifts through the stalks, something between a lullaby and a farmer's work song. You head toward the sound, each footstep whispering secrets to the ground. The moonlight reveals a narrow path where wheat parts like polite hosts clearing a red carpet. You can practically hear the fields gossiping. Did you see that outfit in 68 BC? Plot twist, they say she's hiding divine powers. You smirk. Nighttime agriculture has its own version of tabloids, apparently. Your pulse quickens when lanterns appear between the heads of grain, tiny fires suspended in glass globes. Each one flickers as though breathing. You notice a circle of smooth stones marking a meeting place, and smoke curls from an unlit brazier at its center. You slip between the beacons and crouch behind a bush of wild thyme, sniffing as rosemary and lavender mingle in the air, promising both wakefulness and dreams. In the hush, you glimpse a cloaked figure placing hand-carved offerings, barley loaves, shaped like crescent moons, onto the brazier's edge. The figure's stance is deliberate, regal, as though conducting some silent ritual. You steady your breath, heart thumping like a war drum in a pastoral parade. You remind yourself this is just a story. But myth holds power, and right now you're smack dab in the middle of one. Above it all, the harvest moon hangs heavy and luminous, casting elongated shadows that dance along the field's furrows. You sense the goddess is near, an unseen conductor, orchestrating every rustle and whisper. The air vibrates with possibility of growth, of endings, and of cycles spiraling through time. And so you wait, chest rising and falling with the nocturnal rhythm as Demeter's hidden harvest moon dance begins in earnest, just out of sight, inviting you deeper into the golden labyrinth. You move silently through the whispering wheat, the steady susurrus of stalks brushing past your fingertips, like thousands of tiny voices sharing gossip you weren't meant to hear. Each husk quivers in the moonlight, murmuring tales of offerings and hidden ceremonies beneath the harvest moon, so many secrets that you almost need subtitles. As you pause, you catch a faint phrase. Gather the amber tears. Release the golden breath, which sounds like something you'd read on an overpriced yoga retreat pamphlet. In classical Greece, the Thesmophoria festival celebrated Demeter and Persephone with feasting and female-led rituals believed to ensure fertile fields and healthy births. A fact you learned in that one lecture you napped through freshman year, but it stuck somehow. Tonight's murmurings feel like echoes of those ancient gatherings carried across millennia by the grains themselves. Historians still argue whether the Thesmophoria's secret ceremonies involved midnight oaths or simply extra servings of fig pastries, because who wouldn't debate the dessert menu of antiquity? The air tastes of cool metal and lavender, and you find yourself inhaling deeply, nose twitching as if you're auditioning for a dog treat commercial. Among the melodic whispers, you detect sharper clipped tones. Moonlight's hunger root-bound promise sky. Given promise. Phrases so cryptic, they make modern corporate mission statements look downright straightforward. A strange little theory suggests ancient farmers believed each corn kernel held a voice, and if you listened long enough, you could hear their gratitude. An odd claim that fringe folklorists love to cite at parties when everyone else is talking about cryptocurrency. You press closer, brushing away a damp leaf to reveal a shallow trench carved into the soil, coated with silvery moondust that glitters under your fingertips. Your palm tingles. It's as if the field itself is charging you a small voltage for trespassing. 3 jokes slip out before you realize it. Great the wheat's demanding toll should have brought Bitcoin. I knew I should have paid rent instead of just squatting in fields, and if Demeter wants a cut, can she at least install PayPal? Your heartbeat speeds as you hear more distinct words. Return of the scythe. Cycle renewed. Silent partner revealed. You follow the voice to a fallen sheaf where a single ear of corn stands upright, as though chosen. Its kernels glow faintly. You lean in closer and swear you see tiny faces etched into the amber, each one mouthing silent vowels. You catch yourself imagining grain emojis texting across ancient networks, definitely too many sci-fi late nights. Nearby, a cluster of mushrooms glows with bioluminescent spores, casting eerie pale light onto a grove of young olive trees. You recall that ancient Greeks associated olives with peace and prosperity. Olive oil was a form of currency pressed into everything from lamps to body scrubs. Here, though the mushroom suggests something darker, local lore whispers that these fungi sprouted from Persephone's footsteps during her yearly descent. Historians still argue whether Homer ever meant literal mushrooms or was just poetic. Because really, who can be sure when nobody wrote footnotes? A cool breeze sends ripples through the wheat and the murmurs fall silent, as if the field is holding its breath. Your own breaths sound loud in your ears, like someone blasting ASMR breathing tracks right beside you. Every sense feels heightened: the rustle of leaves, the damp tang of soil, the soft thump of your heart trying to slam out of your chest. You wonder if you should call a friend or at least text your mom. "Mom, I'm fine, just listening to Grains at 2 a.m. Suddenly, a voice so soft it's almost inside your skull whispers, "The harvest never forgets." It's equal parts lullaby and threat, and you shiver despite the warm night air. You realize your flashlight is off. The moon is your only guide. You flick it on only to see it bounce off hundreds of tiny silver threads, strung between stalks, spider webs, catching the light like miniature suspension bridges for tiny 8-legged commuters. You wonder if they're here for the ceremony or just freeloading. Maybe they'll ask for a cut of the corn too. You inch forward until you reach a spiral of crushed stalks encircling a small mound of earth. The wheat around it stands unnervingly straight, pointing inward like an audience crowding the front row. In the center rests an obsidian mirror reflecting the harvest moon's face perfectly. You recognize that reflective surfaces were sometimes used in divination baths to glimpse the future. Another scholarly side note, someone once plunked on a slide. Legends even say Demeter used a polished shield to communicate with her daughter from afar, which some believe morphed into Greek mythology's first selfie stick. Jokes momentarily forgotten, you stare into the mirror and see your own wide-eyed expression staring back. Then for a heartbeat, the face blurs and shifts. Lips whisper, "Offer what the earth gives freely." You feel compelled to lift your hand, pluck a single stalk of barley and place it before you. Your fingers close around it with more reverence than you expected, as if you're handling a royal scepter. Behind you, the wheat shudders and a whisper booms, "Reap what you sow." The voices return in a rush, countless hushed tones layering into a single resonant chant. You turn to follow the sound, heart-pounding senses aflame, pulled deeper into Demeter's secret world by those murmuring ears. You slip past the thrumming chant of the wheat choir, every stalk bending as though to whisper a warning she's near. Moonlight leaks through the silvered clouds, pooling in the hollow of your palm like liquid mercury. The air tastes faintly of roasted chestnuts and fresh clover, oddly comforting, until you remember you're alone in a field at 3 a.m., surrounded by sentient grains. Legends say Demeter once wandered the earth, disguised as an old woman searching for her daughter Persephone, after Hades snatched her away, an origin story that kick-started the Eleusinian mysteries and transformed Greek society with secret rituals that lasted 2 millennia. Mainstream historians note that initiates swore oaths of silence so stringent that no written record survives, only tantalizing hints about a sacred drink and visions of the underworld. Historians still argue whether that drink contained psychoactive ingredients, or if it was purely symbolic, because seriously, who doesn't love a mystery spiked with ancient party drugs? Ahead, beneath a crooked olive tree, you spot a hunched figure draped in nondescript rags, her face hidden beneath a cowl. She kneels by a wheelbarrow filled with moon-bright wheat ears, sorting kernels as if counting invisible coins. You approach, heart-thudding, flashlight trembling in your grip. Every instinct screams that you should turn back, but curiosity roots you in place. You clear your throat once, twice before blurting, "Good evening, ma'am. Nice night for grain sorting." The figure pauses, lifting a gnarled hand that glitters with dew. Under that hood, you glimpse a single eye, soft and ancient, reflecting the field's glow. Her voice, when it comes, is low and surprisingly melodic. The harvest dances best in silence. You swallow, mouth suddenly as dry as last week's pita. A fringe theory suggests Demeter disguised herself with enchanted barley husks that shimmered under moonlight, cloaking divine radiance in humble form. An idea so whimsical your inner skeptic cringes. Yet here you stand facing someone who commands the wheat to kneel. You watch as, with a gentle murmur, the kernels rise and drift into the air like golden fireflies swirling around her fingertips. You swallow your doubt and muster another question. Are you Demeter? You may as well have asked if your cat is secretly orchestrating world politics. Still, you can't help yourself. The figure shifts and you catch a glimpse of coppery hair braided with wildflowers, an oddity for someone claiming anonymity. Flowers at night don't usually hold together. Either she's a gardening prodigy or something else is at play. She straightens, revealing herself in a slow motion that feels choreographed for dramatic effect. The hood falls back and you blink at the goddess's gentle smile, the way her eyes hold centuries of sorrow and hope. She tilts her head as though amused by your presence, by you. Curiosity lights more fires than torchbearers, she says, voice hushed. You remember that Demeter's grief over Persephone's loss supposedly caused the very first winter, a famine so severe scholars estimate 1/3 of Attica's population suffered crop failure. Historians still argue whether that winter myth explains an actual climate event, or if it's purely metaphorical. You blurt because of course you have to demonstrate you paid attention in that one climate change lecture. She nods as though granting you some scholarly brownie point and gestures to the wheelbarrow. You step forward and she hands you a handful of moonlit kernels that feel warm like smoldering embers. You hold them and feel tiny pulses a heartbeat you swear isn't yours. The goddess lowers her voice. These seeds carry memory. Plant them in your mind, and the past blooms within you. Your mind races with 5th grade biology. Memories. Seeds store DNA, mitochondria, chloroplasts, a scientific fact so basic that children recite it in school. Yet somehow tonight that lesson feels sensationally prophetic. You tuck the kernels into your pocket, imagining they'll sprout secrets later when you can't sleep. She stands brushing stray stalks from her robes, and you realize her cloak isn't rags, but woven from hundreds of barley husks, each etched with tiny runes that glow faintly. You reach out, but catch yourself. Divine attire demands reverence and spatial awareness. You joke under your breath, Nice ensemble, nature's haute couture. She permits herself a soft laugh that echoes through the field like a gentle breeze. The goddess steps back and raises her arms. The wheat around you all sway toward her in a synchronous bow, the field kneeling like a congregation in worship. You feel like an uninvited guest in the holiest of sanctuaries, acutely aware of every breath you take. She lowers her hands and the melody resumes haunting flute notes, interwoven with low drum beats that resonate in your chest. Tonight you witness the hidden harvest moon dance, she declares, voice becoming the music itself. Few mortals earn this honor. You clutch your flashlight like a lifeline, but find the batteries flicker and die, leaving you to rely on moonlight alone. The kernels in your pocket throb gently, as though reminding you of their promise. You take a careful step back, uncertain whether to run or stay, and learn more. She offers a slight bow, then turns to lead the way toward a grove where shadows twist into dancers. You follow, drawn by the allure of forbidden knowledge and the hush of wheat guiding your path. Behind you, the hushed chant shifts from whisper to murmur, as if the field itself conspires to facilitate your pilgrimage. And as you cross the threshold into Demeter's secret world, you realize you're no longer the observer, you're part of the rite. You trudge forward, every step soft against the loamy earth, as the grove opens before you, like a secret chamber. Silver beams filter through olive branches, illuminating low stone benches carved with grain motifs that look like an Instagram influencer's idea of antique chic. A gentle breeze carries the scent of crushed thyme and roasting acorns, mingling with the sweeter aroma of honeysuckle garlands looping between tree trunks. You inhale deeply, feeling the night air fill your lungs with something both ancient and alive. At the grove's center, a rough-hewn altar of oak stands, its surface smoothed by centuries of offerings. Upon it you see an array of herbs, rosemary, bay leaves, and something you can't quite identify, perhaps hyssop. Arranged around a shallow bowl of water, reflecting the moon's glow. Fringe researchers sometimes claim Demeter's rite used water from Eleusis' secret spring to reveal hidden truths, but no archaeological evidence confirms it. Historians still argue whether that spring ever existed or if it was a symbolic metaphor for initiation itself. A chorus of low vibrations begins beneath your feet, as though the earth is humming a lullaby meant for giants. You glance down, spotting tiny runes etched into the stones underfoot, marks that shimmer when moonlight touches them. You consider kneeling to trace one with your fingertip, but restrain yourself. You're pretty sure divine graffiti counts as vandalism. Instead, you circle the altar, noting how each herb seems to pulse faintly, as if breathing on its own. Demeter stands behind the altar, her cloak of barley husks rustling like distant applause. She dips her fingers into the bowl, lifting the water so it drips from her fingertips in slow motion arcs. Each drop lands on a sprig of rosemary, causing its silvery needles to glow briefly before settling back to their normal hue. You lean in, watching droplets expand like miniature moons. The goddess murmurs an incantation so soft you can't parse the words, though you swear you catch rebirth and grain-bound promise woven in. You clear your throat, attempting to mimic quiet reverence, but it comes out like a startled owl. Demeter's eyes meet yours, bright with amused indulgence. She beckons and you step forward, heart pounding. Touch. She says, voice as smooth as aged wine. You extend a trembling hand toward the water bowl. The moment your fingertips break the surface, ripples race outward, distorting the moon's reflection into wild patterns, as if signaling the world shifting beneath your feet. A mainstream fact surfaces in your mind: water was critical in ancient rituals for purification and transformation, symbolizing the boundary between the mortal and divine. Yet tonight, the water feels less like a barrier and more like a bridge one you're crossing with every heartbeat. Historians still argue whether Greek initiates consumed a Kikaean brew for enlightenment, or if the water itself held the key to inner visions. Whatever the truth, you're on the brink of something you can't unsee. The goddess steps aside, revealing small clay platters, each holding a honeyed barley cake shaped like a crescent moon, an homage to lunar cycles and agricultural rhythms. You pick one up, noting its weight and the way tiny flecks of time cling to the sticky glaze. You nibble at the edge. Honey floods your taste buds, followed by a surprising tang of wild fennel. A fringe tidbit flits across your thoughts. Some farmers swore that moonbake cakes could induce prophetic dreams, yet no temple ever admitted how they tested that claim. As you chew slowly, the grove's hush deepens. Shadows lengthen, and you feel eyes upon you, though no one watches. It's as if the trees themselves lean closer, leaves rustling in anticipation. 3 jokes tumble out before you halt yourself. Is this like a midnight snack, or am I volunteering for the ancient Hunger Games? If I dream of crop circles, is that a prophetic vision, or I need sleep? Can nobody just pass around popcorn instead? Demeter raises her hands, and the earth trembles faintly, sending a shower of golden pollen drifting down like confetti. Each grain dances in moonlight, swirling around you in a slow-motion ballet. You feel your eyelids grow heavy as the pollen settles on your lashes, tickling you awake and asleep all at once. You blink, and the grove seems to pulse with breath as though the whole world inhales in unison. Now Demeter intones, voice layered with echo, you honor the cycle. She raises a ceremonial sickle, its blade glinting coldly. You remember that the sickle was the first tool used to harvest grain, a simple invention that reshaped human destiny. Historians still argue whether the sickle's design originated in the Near East or emerged independently across cultures. But tonight it feels like more than a tool. It's a symbol of endings that seed new beginnings. She makes a gentle cut through a stalk of barley at the altar's edge. The action resonates, and suddenly dozens of stalks around the grove lean away, creating a corridor of waving gold. The rustling intensifies into rhythm, as if the field itself has become a living drum circle. You step into the aisle, drawn forward by an irresistible pulse. A low drum beat materializes, soft at first, then building a heartbeat echoing the earth's own. Pale figures emerge from the darkness beyond the grove-robed dancers, tracing slow patterns, feet bare, moving in perfect synchrony. Their shadows flicker like whispered stories woven into the earth. You realize with a thrill that you recognize the melody. It's the same tune your grandmother hummed while kneading dough on Sunday mornings, a comforting relic of domestic rites passed down through generations. You follow the dancers into the corridor of barley, guided by moonlit lanterns hung from branches like spectral fireflies. Each step you take finds firm ground, but the hairs on your neck prick as if every root sends greetings. The dancers part to let you pass and nod in solemn acceptance, welcoming you into a ritual older than cities. And as you move deeper, the scent of incense, cypress wood, and crushed mint flirts with your senses, promising revelations that linger on the edge of dreams. You realize you're no longer just observing Demeter's hidden harvest moon dance. You're an essential note in its eternal melody woven into the tapestry of myth and earth and moonlight. Moonbeams dance on dew-laced barley as you find yourself at the fringe of a clearing where a chorus of voices rises like a tide. The singers stand in concentric circles, their tunics woven from wheat stalks and embroidered with ear motifs that catch the light. You trudge closer, senses attuned to every breathy note and footfall, marveling at how the music seems to emerge from the earth itself. You probably won't survive this without at least one goosebump. In classical myth, the harvest hymn was sung to honor Demeter's gift of grain, a song rediscovered on ancient tablets in Sicyon that scholars date to around 500 BCE, a mainstream historical fact that underscores the power of ritual music in agrarian societies. Yet tonight's performance feels more intimate than any archaeological fragment. Historians still argue whether the original hymn was sung by locals or if it was a sacred chant reserved for temple initiates. But here, beneath the harvest moon, you're privy to its living resonance. The melody washes over you in undulating waves, low drones that mimic the hum of bees, soaring crescendos like wings unfurling. You notice a subtle undercurrent of percussion, wooden clappers fashioned from olive branches clicking in sync, their rhythm steady as the pulse of a resting heartbeat. Your chest throbs in time, a physical echo of the chorus's breath. A fringe theory buzzes in your mind. Some believe ancient agrarians used sound to heighten crop vitality, exposing fields to rhythmic drumming and chanting so that vibrations encouraged root growth. While no serious agronomist endorses it, you can't shake the impression that the soil beneath your boots feels energized, as though each note seeps into the roots and spreads outward. You edge near the front of the choir, ducking beneath an overhanging grapevine, festooned with ripe clusters that glimmer like dark jewels. A tenor's voice rises sharply, slicing through the harmony like a scythe through straw, and you hear the words clear at last. Golden Mother, yield your grain. Let earth and moon convene again. The language is archaic but familiar. The kind of ritual verse that sticks in your memory like a catchy jingle you can't unhear. Beside you, a soft soprano hums a counterline, her breath warm against your ear. You turn to see delicate features framed by petals woven into her hair, eyes closed in reverent focus. You wonder if this is a mortal devotee or another divine envoy. But the fact sinks in whether gods walk among mortals or mortals channel gods. The boundary dissolves tonight. You recall that choral performance was central to Greek civic life choruses, woven into tragedies, comedies, and religious observances, yet devoted primarily to entertainment in later eras. Historians still argue whether the earliest choral hymns were purely religious or the foundation for epic poetry's evolution. This moment feels like the genesis of both music and myth. Intertwining beneath silver skies, a sudden whisper circles you. Listen beyond the music. You still your breath and strain your ears. Beneath the harmonious layers, you detect a plaintive undercurrent, a solo lament that threads through the melody like a silver thread through tapestry. The sound glows with longing, a reminder of Persephone's absence in the underworld. You glance toward a shadowed corner where a solitary bard sits on a low stump, fingers dancing across a lyre carved from yew. Her tune speaks of parting and return of seasons lost, and regained, an emotional counterpoint to the jubilant chorus. You step closer, compelled by the lyre's bittersweet notes. The bard's eyes flick open, meeting yours with a glance that holds both invitation and caution. She plucks a delicate chord, and the harvesting choir softens, layering hushed harmonies behind her solo. You feel the music swirl around your ankles, rising like mist from the earth, and you sense something profound unfurling within your chest. In a hushed voice, she murmurs to you. The harvest sings its own lament when the cycle repeats. You nod, though the words feel too heavy for speech. The wind carries the whisper to Demeter herself, who steps forward and raises her hand. Instantly, the choir swells in volume, voices intertwining until you stand enveloped in a cocoon of sound. Each note vibrates through your bones as if the earth is serenading you. You close your eyes, letting the music wash away the boundary between self and world. You feel the dancer's footsteps, the wind stirring the leaves, and something deeper, an ancient pulse thrumming through your veins. You imagine tiny pollens dancing in the air, each carrying a fragment of the song to distant fields. You recall stories of Orpheus charming trees and stones with his lyre. This feels no different, except the entire grove is one living instrument. A ripple spreads through the chorus, and suddenly they break into an earth-shaking chant of epikousi epikosi, a term so lost to time that its meaning is debated, though some believe it invokes abundance. The ground beneath you vibrates, and you grasp a nearby trunk for balance, knuckles whitening. The chant crescendos until moonlight seems to dance in syncopation, casting shifting patterns on the dancers' faces. 3 wisecracks bubble up before you hush yourself. If I had this playlist on Spotify, I'd hit repeat. Does the earth come with bonus content? And can we get an encore? But the gravity of the rite holds your tongue. Your living myth, invisible ink on the pages of an unwritten story. Then in a sudden hush, the music halts, as if someone snapped a conductor's baton. Silence crashes down, more potent than any note. You blink disoriented eyes, adjusting to the grove's dark silhouette. A single lantern flickers at the altar, a signal. You realize that the next phase begins. You step forward, heart still resonating from the chords. Demeter's soft voice threads through the quiet. Now the harvest moon shares her secret. You shuffle closer, ready to receive the next whisper in this ancient dialogue. You trail the lantern-lit path deeper into the grove until the trees part and reveal a silent circle of towering stones, each one hewn with grain motifs that glow faintly under the harvest moon. You step into the ring, the air humming with hushed energy as lanterns suspended from iron hooks sway like gentle will-o'-the-wisps. You probably won't survive this without feeling the hairs on your arms stand at rigid attention, and maybe you'd like it that way. This stone circle feels older than any temple ruin you visited, harking back to Neolithic megaliths whose true purpose still puzzles archaeologists who date similar structures to around 3000 BCE, suggesting early European farmers honored celestial events with standing stones. Historians still argue whether these circles functioned as calendars to track solstices or as communal gathering spots for seasonal rites. And tonight, you're at the epicenter of a forgotten ceremony. The lanterns overhead cast mottled shadows, painting the stones with shifting patterns that dance across glyphs of wheat, barley, and poppy. You can smell the iron tang of rust on the hooks and the sweet scent of burning beeswax from the lantern wicks. Each breath draws in a cocktail of smoky honey and damp moss, an aroma that makes you twitch your nose like a bunny auditioning for ASMR. A fringe theory floats through your mind. Some folks claim these stones were carved from meteorite fragments, granting them cosmic power to bless crops. There's no credible evidence for space rock wheat. Yet the notion persists at late-night folklore panels, where people sip mead and argue about crop circles. You sidestep a gnarled root and approach the largest monolith, its surface etched with a spiral that seems to pulse beneath your fingertips. You trace the grooves, feeling a slight warmth, as if the stone itself were breathing. 3 jokes tumble out before you stop yourself. Stonehenge called it once its vibe back. If these stones start glowing emojis, I'm out, and I did not sign up for a crop-themed escape room. In the circle's center, a low dais holds a shallow basin carved from a single block of limestone. The basin is filled with cold spring water reflecting not just the moon, but a flicker of shapes you can't quite identify. You bend over and see ripples shift into patterns, tiny silhouettes of dancers in mid-pose swirling like living etchings on the water's surface. You gasp, realizing the basin is an ancient mirror of rites once used to commune with deities by gazing into these moving visions. You recall that mirrors in antiquity were made of polished bronze and considered precious heirlooms, objects so valuable only the wealthy owned them. Mainstream records note that Greeks used such mirrors in funerary contexts to reflect the soul's passage. Historians still argue whether these mirrors were practical tools or symbolic placeholders for unseen realms. Tonight, you see the realms dance before you. A hush descends as a figure emerges from the shadows, a tall youth wearing a tunic of woven reeds, face half hidden by a hood of barley husks. They carry a bronze torch, its flame flickering golden brass and illuminating every glyph on the stones. You recognize the torch model similar to ones displayed in the National Archaeological Museum, used during classical-era processions celebrating Demeter's epiphany in Eleusis. This torchbearer steps to the dais and lowers the flame until it flickers at water's edge. The basin's surface ripples faster, and you swear you see the silhouettes of Demeter and Persephone dancing together, arms entwined in a forbidden embrace. Your chest tightens with awe. You're watching a memory older than any written record. A scholarly aside surfaces in your mind. Historians still argue whether Persephone's descent myth symbolizes agricultural cycles or ancient matrilineal power shifts, and you realize you're eyewitness to both interpretations materializing in liquid light. Suddenly, the torchbearer dips the torch's base into the water. Steam hisses, and the basin fills with floating motes that glow like fireflies. A subtle vapor rises, carrying the scent of crushed olive leaves and wild mint. You lean closer, wanting to capture every detail, but the vapor tickles your throat, making you cough, prompting an embarrassed cough joke. Guess I'm allergic to divine revelations. The torchbearer turns and beckons you forward with a slow, solemn gesture. You step onto the dais hesitant but drawn by an irresistible pull. The stones seem to lean in their glyphs, glowing brighter, as if welcoming your presence. The torchbearer speaks in a soft voice. Place your hand upon the water. See what the moon reveals. You kneel and dip your fingertips into the basin, cold water sending a tingle up your arm. The surface quivers, and the dancing silhouettes shift into symbols. Grain sheaves, crescent moons, and an open hand offering seeds. You lift your fingers and droplets cling to your skin like tiny pearls. A whisper echoes around the stones. Knowledge planted yields endless harvest. The stones themselves seem to resonate with the phrase, the vibrations humming through your bones. You close your eyes, imagining seeds sinking into fertile soil, seeds of memory and myth taking root in your mind. A fringed tale flits across your thoughts. Some mystics claim that those who drink from such ritual waters acquire a second sight and uncanny ability to dream of future harvests. No documented case supports it, though you wouldn't bet against a well-told story in a midnight orchard. You notice the torchbearer watching you, and you dare a wry smile. So is there a reset button if I see next year's crop failure? They allow a faint grin before raising the torch higher. The glow intensifies and the basin brightens until the entire circle shimmers in pale gold. The lanterns around you sway as if stirred by unseen breath, their reflections dancing in the water like stars come to earth. The rustling of leaves crescendos into a reverberating sigh, the grove itself exhaling. You stand, heart pounding, feeling a deep connection with the stones, the water, and the moon above. From your pocket, the barley kernels pulse softly, a reminder that you bear Demeter's gifts within you now. You tuck your hand back into your robe, fingers brushing the smooth husks. The torchbearer steps aside and the circle falls silent once more, awaiting the next movement in Demeter's hidden harvest moon dance. You take a breath, ready to follow the next invitation, as the stones watch in solemn vigil, ancient guardians of a ritual etched in earth and memory. You step into a clearing now bathed in pearly luminescence as dancers swirl around a central bonfire of smoldering oak logs. The crackling flames flicker in concert with their movements, casting elongated shadows that stretch like raven wings among the stalks. You trudge closer, drawn by the hypnotic rhythm of bare feet scuffing earth, every shuffle echoing a heartbeat you feel in your own chest. In classical accounts, fire played a pivotal role in harvest ceremonies. Farmers would offer the first sheaf to flames as a prayer for protection against pests and frost. Archaeologists uncovered charred barley remains in Bronze Age settlements dating to around 2000 BCE, confirming that ritual fires predate written myth. Historians still argue whether these bonfires symbolized purification or acted as practical field-clearing aids, but tonight, they serve both blaze and blessing. The dancers move in tight circles, arms linked, heads tilted back to the sky as if beckoning the moon's favor. You notice their tunics shimmer with metallic threads. Some claim those threads were spun from golden wheat stalks dipped in molten bronze. A fringe tidbit so implausible it sounds like alchemy. Yet here under moonlight, the glint seems real. You find yourself at the circle's edge, flashlight off, but arm extended, hand brushing a dancer's sleeve. The fabric feels alive, warm, and slightly damp, as though breathing. You crack a grin and joke to yourself, well, there goes my haute couture wardrobe budget. They glance at you, eyes bright with shared delight, then spin back into the fire-lit swirl. Above the flames, someone beats a large wooden frame drum, its deep pulse reverberating through the night. You recall that frame drums were common in ancient Greek religious rites, often played by women as part of Dionysian ceremonies, a fact that suggests cross-influence between agrarian and ecstatic cults. Historians still argue whether Demeter's rites incorporated Dionysian elements or remained strictly chthonic. But tonight, the drum bridges worlds. As the drum beat intensifies, a shower of sparks arcs skyward, each ember trailing a golden tail before fading into the starry canopy. You tilt your head back, feeling as if you're inside a living kaleidoscope of light and sound. Every spark seems to carry a promise, growth, renewal, transformation. Suddenly, the dancers part, revealing a tall figure draped in a cloak of woven poppy petals, their face obscured by a mask of carved olive wood. They hold a curved scythe, whose blade bears the faintest inscription, Eternal Return. 3 jokes bubble up before you suppress them. Is this celeb appearance, or I missed the invite? Pretty sure my insurance doesn't cover mythic scythe mishaps. At least it's a clean cut. The masked figure raises the scythe skyward. The circle of dancers lifts their arms in unison and the bonfire's flames leap higher, sending a warm wave that ripples through the grove. The heat brushes your face and you feel the pulse of life coursing through every leaf and ear of grain. You step forward compelled, and the figure lowers the scythe into the ground at your feet. The blade sinks silently into the earth, anchoring a sudden stillness. The drum stops mid-beat, and the dancers freeze mid-twirl, mid-step like statues poised in a timeless tableau. In that hush, you hear a voice as soft as falling pollen. Remember, every ending feeds the next beginning. It's neither male nor female, neither fully mortal nor divine. You absorb the phrase, feeling its weight settle in your bones. The dancers release their holds and slowly lower their arms, resuming a gentle sway. The bonfire dims to smoldering logs, embers, glowing like watchful eyes. You realize the scythe's blade now bears fresh inscriptions, your initials, and the date, a fleeting imprint that scholars would kill for. Historians still argue whether participants marked personal oaths in Demeter's ceremonies, and you've just left your own ancient signature. You crouch to touch the handle cool metal against your palm and feel an electric thrill coursing up your arm. The poppy cloak rustles as the masked figure steps back, merging into shadow. Flickers of laughter ripple through the hushed grove, as if the weed itself chuckles at your astonishment. You stand cradling the scythe's handle briefly before stepping away, aware that you carry more than a memory. You bear a living emblem of the harvest's cycle. The moonlight catches the blade one last time, and you promise yourself you'll never view a field of grain the same again. You emerge from the ember-lit grove into a hushed orchard, clearing where low wooden carts and woven baskets lie heaped with fruits and nuts of every conceivable shape and hue. A soft moonbeam drapes itself over the bounty, illuminating knobbly pomegranates, rose-tinted quinces, and almond clusters that glint like crystalline constellations. You trudge forward, muscles slackening at the abundance, each step stirring up the scent of ripened earth and floral honey. You probably won't survive this sight without considering a midnight snack or a small heist. In classical Athens, the cornucopia symbol, literally horn of plenty, originated from the myth of Zeus's goat Amalthea, whose horn provided endless food and drink, embodying abundance in art and coinage. Historians still argue whether the cornucopia was primarily a religious icon or evolved into a civic emblem of prosperity and trade. Here, beneath the harvest moon, you glimpse its living progenitor, a forgotten orchard said to be planted by Demeter herself. You bend to examine a plump, deep blue fig whose surface shimmers with dew. One bite yields an explosion of sweetness tempered by a bright tartness that tastes almost like nectar distilled from moonbeams. You pause, startled by how vibrant the flavor feels, like someone mixed the universe's best jam in a cauldron of starlight. A fringe theory claims that Demeter's lost orchard produced fruit capable of granting prophetic dreams when eaten under a full moon, a legend popular with late-night YouTube conspiracy channels. Historians still argue whether any Hellenistic farms practiced nocturnal harvesting to maximize dew sweetness, or if it's merely poetic license. Yet here you stand sampling fruit that practically hums. You pop a handful of almonds into your pocket, each kernel warm and slightly oily, as though offering a subtle pulse. You swallow and crack a joke. If these nuts come with life advice, I hope they're in English. Beyond the figs and almonds, you notice translucent grapes that glow faintly from within like tiny lanterns. You crush one between your fingers, and its juice spills thick and luminous, coating your fingers in a sticky film that smells of spiced wine and jasmine. Curiously, no vine tends twist around these grapes. They drift weightless in shallow baskets lined with woven straw. You quip under your breath. Next up on Late Night Inventors, gravity-free grapes. In a corner, you spy exotic fruits, pear-shaped poods that feel like rubbery cushions, and chewy russet globes that look like mini planets. A small sign carved in stone reads, "Ekatere Poma Gifts of the Earth," though its meaning is lost to common tongues. You recall that ancient Greek farmers cultivated over 80 fruit varieties, introducing cherries, apples, and figs across the Mediterranean. Mainstream botanists trace some domestic apple strains back to Anatolian grafts, imported around 500 BCE. Historians still argue whether apple cultivation spread through trade networks or royal exchange, but tonight you stand at a crossroads of both. You dip a russet globe to your lips and taste a combination of tart apple and roasted hazelnut, an unexpected fusion that tingles your senses like a chemical experiment gone deliciously right. A fringe hypothesis posits that Demeter's orchard was irrigated with water from the underworld spring, endowing each crop with faint hallucinogenic properties. No lab has ever confirmed this unless you count the one time your college roommate tried mushroom latte experiments and you jokingly wonder if your couch cushions ever seemed more sentient. You crouch beside a stack of hand-woven baskets brimming with small, round nuts, whose shells are etched with minuscule runes you can't decipher. You pick up one tiny nut and rub it between your fingers. Its texture is warm, almost velvety, and remarkably heavy for its size. You bob your head to the quiet rustle of the orchard, thinking, if I weren't here, I'd report this as a potential health hazard, dangerously delicious. A soft voice floats through the trees. Take but one gift and let the orchard judge your heart. It must be Demeter speaking, though you don't see her. You look at the baskets and weigh your options. Pomegranates that whisper of rebirth, almonds of memory, grapes of light, each offering a promise you can almost taste. You shrug and pluck a single pomegranate seed from a shattered fruit lying atop the baskets, popping it into your mouth. Its juice bursts with a sweet acid firework that warms your chest. You hiccup a joke. Guess that was the rebirth I ordered. You pocket the runic nut instead of finishing the pomegranate, intrigued by its mystery. The orchard seems to lean in around you, branches brushing your shoulders in gentle applause. You sense the ground pulse beneath your feet, as if approving your choice. A final scholarly aside surfaces: historians still argue whether temple groves were exclusively sacred spaces or functioned as communal orchards. Tonight it's both a sanctuary and a pantry intertwined beneath Demeter's watchful moon. You stand basket forgotten, holding your treasures, the runic nut in one hand and a cluster of glowing grapes in the other. Fireflies drift through the orchard, dotting the darkness like living stars. You inhale one last breath of jasmine-scented air, feeling the weight of myth settle warmly around your shoulders. And as you step away from Demeter's hidden orchard, you carry with you a taste of divine abundance, proof that some legends bear fruit when you least expect it. You step onto a narrow causeway of fallen stalks that arches over a mist-laden hollow, the moonlight glinting off dew like scattered diamonds. A cool breeze wafts up from the dip, carrying whispers of damp earth and distant cicadas. A lullaby woven from nocturnal chorus and fertile soil. You probably won't survive this without marveling at how every sense feels amplified, as though the harvest moon has sharpened the world around you into crystalline focus. Ahead, you see a low dais built of woven reeds and clay, atop which rests a leather-bound scroll sealed with a crescent moon clasp. The scroll's worn surface is etched with glyphs you recognize from earlier carvings, yet their arrangement here feels deliberate, as if inviting your hands to decode lost knowledge. You trudge forward, pulse quickening like a mortar and pestle grind in your chest, and kneel to break the seal. Classical sources tell us that Demeter bestowed the gift of alphabetic writing to mortal scribes so they could record agricultural calendars and grain yields, a fact confirmed by linear B tablets from Pylos dating to around 1200 BCE. These early records demonstrate an administrative mastery that underpinned palace economies. Historians still argue whether Linear B evolved directly from Minoan script or emerged as an independent innovation among Mycenaean scribes. Tonight you hold a potential bridge between myth and early bureaucracy in your trembling hands. You unfurl the scroll, the leather crackling like autumn leaves underfoot. The text inside shimmers faintly, weaving between inked lines and silver traceries that pulse with moonlight. You scan the first glyph's instructions for a rite called the Silver Sheaf Offering, meant to ensure optimal germination. According to this rite, farmers would weave a sheaf from the first stalks of harvest, anoint it with dew collected on the moon's forehead, then bury it under the new wheat. A fringe theory crosses your mind. Some folklorists insist that such dew-infused sheaves granted soil its memory, leading to generational crop resilience. A claim no agronomist takes seriously. Yet here, the glyphs glow as though affirming the lore. You cough and joke under your breath. If only my houseplants could remember water schedules this well. The next passage describes a paradoxical ritual at the moment of full moonrise. The harvest dance's final circle would pause, and participants would lift their shadows from the earth, casting them upon a sacrificial altar. This act symbolized humanity's debt to Demeter, acknowledging that for every grain gained, a fragment of the human spirit remained tethered to the soil. You shiver, whether that's reverence or thrill, you can't tell. Historians still argue whether references to shadow offerings and archaic poetry were metaphorical expressions of gratitude or detailed instructions for actual practice. Poets like Sappho alluded to casting woes from our heels, which some interpret as a euphemism for this rite, while others chalk it up to lyrical flourish. Now, with the scroll before you, the debate takes on tangible weight. You glance around to find a small bronze lamp standing beside the dais. Its wick is unstained by soot, as though unused for centuries. Yet its metal surface feels warm to the touch. You lift it and twist a hidden latch. Suddenly, the lamp brightens with a silver flame that neither crackles nor dims. You exhale a soft laugh of surprise. Please don't ask for sacrifice in Bitcoin. Holding the lamp aloft, you read the final lines. At dawn's first light, the seed debt returns to Demeter's hand, and the soul's shimmer fades into grain. Beneath the text, a faint watermark in the shape of a sheaf pulses gently like a heartbeat. You realize the scroll itself is alive with ritual energy, as though each word carries a fragment of ancient power. A gentle gale stirs the wheat around you, and voices echo through the hollow, murmuring phrases like debt repaid and cycle unbroken. You slip the scroll into your satchel instincts, warning you that this knowledge isn't meant for idle curiosity. Yet, the thrill of discovery outpaces caution. A scholarly aside surfaces. Historians still argue whether agrarian rites were primarily pragmatic ceremonies to secure community survival or evolved into elaborate performance art reserved for elites. As you rise, the lamp's silver flame casts dancing runes upon the scroll's leather, reminding you that tonight's revelations blur the lines between practice and pageantry. You follow a narrow path back toward the orchard clearing, guided by the lamp's ethereal glow. Each step feels laden with significance, as though you tread a living manuscript, penned by goddess and scribe alike. The wheat on either side seems to bend in silent accord, offering a parting salute. In your pocket, the runic nut murmurs softly, the silver flame dancing across its etched surface. You consider nibbling it. Perhaps it contains a missing clue or a whispered secret, but you resist. Some mysteries demand safeguarding, not consumption. At the edge of the clearing, you pause and lift the lamp high. The stone circle appears behind you, its monoliths etched with reflections of the flame as though rekindled by your touch. The distant chant resumes a gentle warble, promising that this dance endures beyond mortal dawn. You tuck the lamp under your arm and glance once more at the scroll's clasp, its crescent moon shining bright. You promise yourself you'll protect its wisdom, though the world beyond this field may never believe your tale. And as you step away from Demeter's hidden enclave, you feel the weight of Harvest's legacy settle into your bones, a story inked in earth and moonlight that you'll carry wherever morning awaits. You emerge from the whispering hollow as dawn's first pale fingers stretch across the sky, and the harvest moon's glow softens into retreating silver. You trudge through dew-damp grass that clings to your ankles like curious children, each blade aglow with tiny beads of water, reflecting a morning chorus of invisible crickets settling in. You probably won't survive this transition without a yawn, so epic it could fuel a small breeze. Ahead, the grove's ancient stones stand stoic. In dawn's light, their glyphs now visible in crisp detail, sheaves of barley etched alongside crescent moons and looping spirals. You recall that similar glyphs on Mycenaean vases date back to around 1400 BCE, illustrating how deeply intertwined agriculture and art were in Bronze Age Greece. Historians still argue whether these images served as mere decoration or encoded secret ritual instructions for initiates. A gentle breeze carries the scent of fresh-turned soil and wild mint, and you inhale as though begging the grove to share its secrets one last time. You spot Demeter at the circle's edge, her silhouette outlined by rising light cloak of barley husks, catching every ray like spun gold. She watches you with an expression both maternal and inscrutable. You approach the goddess, heart fluttering like a sparrow in a harvest net. A fringe tale pops into your mind. Some farmers swore that greeting Demeter at dawn after her moon dance guaranteed year-round bounty. No records confirm anyone tested this claim, though you're feeling optimistic as you near her. She nods, then gestures toward the central dais where the ceremonial sickle rests, blade glinting with dew. Every cycle completes anew, she murmurs. You step forward and lift the sickle. Its weight familiar, now an emblem of both conclusion and commencement. You enthuse quietly. This feels like holding the plot twist of a really complicated soap opera. Demeter smiles, and for a moment you glimpse grief and joy intertwined in her gaze, the sorrow of seasons lost and the hope in each rebirth. You recall that ancient Greek hymns personified seasons as deities, celebrating Demeter's grief as a narrative device that explained winter's barrenness. Historians still argue whether these hymns were originally written for performance or personal devotion. You raise the sickle, and with mindful precision sever a single stalk of barley from the dais's edge. The blade slices cleanly, and the wheat falls in a soft rustle. Demeter inclines her head, and the earth beneath you trembles faintly in affirmation of your right. You quip under your breath, cutting-edge agriculture, literally. From your pocket you retrieve the runic nut you pocketed in the orchard. Its carved symbols glow faintly in dawn's glow. You press your thumb into its warm shell, and it shatters into two perfect halves, revealing a tiny seed that pulses like a heartbeat. You catch the seed, feeling its life force hum through your fingertips. 3 jokes surface before you tuck the seed into the soil near the sickle's blade. Guess it's time to plant ideas, literally. Seed funding for crops, am I right? And please sprout Wi-Fi next. As you press the seed into the earth, a single silver drop of dew falls from your fingers, mingling with soil. Demeter steps closer and whispers, "Debt repaid, cycle unbroken." You feel the grove respond, lanterns, dim glyphs flicker, and the hush deepens into a reverent silence. A curious detail catches your eye among the barley husks at Demeter's feet. A solitary poppy blossom blooms crimson against gold. You recall that poppies were symbols of both sleep and death in Greek lore, used medicinally and ritually. Historians still argue whether poppy motifs signified peaceful rest or a reminder of life's fragility. This lone bloom feels like a deliberate punctuation to the ceremony. With the rite fulfilled, Demeter extends her hand. You accept, feeling small sparks of warmth where your skin meets hers. "Carry this return into your world," she says. You nod, heart swelling with a promise you don't fully understand but intend to keep. The goddess turns and walks away, cloak rustling like distant applause. You watch her fade into the grove's edge as sunlight gilds every leaf and stalk. The lanterns vanish quietly and the glyph's glow dims, leaving the stones looking for all the world like ordinary monoliths reclaimed by dawn. You stand alone, sunrise, warming your back sickle and seed, now symbols of your shared covenant. The air feels different, lighter, infused with the promise of growth. You pocket the sickle's blade clip and feel the runic seed's echo tickle your pocket. You take a deep breath, tasting the morning air's crisp tang, and whisper, "Thank you, Demeter," though your voice cracks slightly. You turn to leave, each step feeling reverent, your senses echoing the grove's own memory. In that quiet moment, you grasp the essence of the hidden harvest moon. Dance, a cycle of loss and renewal, of endings that nourish beginnings, and of secrets shared only with those who dare to listen. You walk away as the grove settles into stillness beneath the rising sun, carrying Demeter's whispered blessings like seeds in your soul. You follow a narrow footpath leading away from the stone circle, each step sinking slightly into soft, dew-kissed soil that retains the night's hush. The orchard reappears before you, transformed by dawn's glow. Baskets lie overturned fruits, half-eaten by unseen hands and petals, drift like confetti across the ground. You trudge onward, senses still alight with the ceremony's afterglow. Every rustle in the breeze feeling like a whispered farewell. You probably won't survive without a wistful sigh. In classical texts, sacred groves were often left inviolate after rites seen as liminal spaces where mortals glimpsed the divine. Archaeologists have found trampled earth in grove sites, indicating gatherings but never definitive evidence of post-ritual cleanup, suggesting reverence outweighed practicality. Historians still argue whether groves served more as repositories of spiritual power or community gathering spots. Your steps lean both ways, part pilgrim, part witness. A gentle wind stirs the remaining fruits on low branches, and one ripe quince drifts down, landing softly at your feet. You stoop, brushing dirt from its pale skin, and snap off a bite, the flesh, crisp and honeyed, carrying a hint of something deeper like memory itself. A fringe notion crosses your mind. Some believe quince blossoms carried protective charms against sorrow. You swallow and joke under your breath. Charm of no regrets, sold separately. Beyond the orchard, the path curves past a shallow spring bubbling up from the earth. Moonlight no longer guides you. Instead, sunbeams dance on ripples as water flows over smooth stones. You kneel, cupping the clear liquid, and bring it to your lips. It tastes of mint and morning freshness, a reminder of the ritual's water offerings. In Eleusinian lore, initiates drank kikin for initiation. Some think it was merely water flavored with barley and mint. Historians still argue whether it was psychoactive or symbolic. This sip feels sanctified regardless. You rise and notice footprints pressed into the mud, delicate sandal-clad imprints leading along the bank. You follow them until they vanish beneath fallen leaves. A solitary stalk of barley grows at the spring's edge, golden against the dark earth. You recall Demeter's edict plant memory where life springs new. Gently you press the stalk into the water's flow, letting its roots drink deeply. 3 dry jokes drift through your mind. I knew horticulture was this high maintenance, at least there's no HOA here, and if only my succulents were this dedicated. You shake your head, amused at yourself. Even in divine company, your quips cling like stubborn burrs. Up ahead, the path opens into a sun-dappled meadow where the morning chorus of birds greets you with trill and call. Wildflowers, cornflower blue, poppy red, and daisy white pepper, the grass nodding in the breeze. You realize this meadow was likely the festival's commencement point, where villagers gathered before walking in procession. Mainstream sources note processions to Eleusis began at dawn amid hymns and offerings. Historians still argue whether those processions spanned miles or were symbolic loops around the town. Now, you stand where mortal and divine once merged. You wander to the meadow's center where a solitary stone bench faces east. You sit gathering your thoughts as songbirds weave their melodies overhead. A gentle warmth spreads through your limbs, residue of nocturnal enchantment, blending with sunlight's promise. In your pocket, the tiny seed pulses softly, a living echo of Demeter's gift. You lean back, eyes closed, feeling the meadow cradle you in an earthen embrace. You reflect on the journey from whispered grains to dancing stones, from fire-lit groves to sunlit springs. You've traversed realms both ancient and immediate. You probably won't survive this reflection without a quiet tear, one for the night's magic and one for dawn's inevitable return. A breeze carries a distant echo of flute and drum, perhaps the ritual's melody lingering in the land itself. You rise, brushing grass from your trousers, ready to carry Demeter's hidden harvest moon dance back into your waking world. You leave the meadow behind and follow a narrow, sunlit pathway bordered by wild mint and thyme, the scents weaving into the morning air like a gentle melody. Each step feels lighter, as if the ground itself supports your memory of last night's enchantments. You probably won't survive this without feeling a soft smile tug at your lips. Ahead, you glimpse the ruins of a half-buried stone granary. Its arches collapsed, but grains still visible in crevices, a reminder that even storied halls of plenty succumb to time. Archaeologists uncovered similar granaries in Thessaly dating to around 800 BCE, noting storage techniques that minimized spoilage. Historians still argue whether centralized granaries indicated communal wealth or elite control. Here you see both communal ritual and divine benevolence converging in shared harvest. A faint whistle drifts on the breeze and you discover an old shepherd's flute balanced on a fallen beam. The wood is smooth, the finger holes worn by countless songs. You lift it to your lips and test a note clear and resonant, as though tuned by cosmic intent. You play a simple lullaby, and the surrounding grasses sway in gentle applause. A fringe notion surfaces. Some believed shepherds' melodies soothed Despoina Demeter's often overlooked daughter, ensuring her blessings on flocks. No surviving texts confirm this, yet the flute song seems to echo across centuries. 3 jokes pop up before you finish the tune. Coming soon. Ancient TikTok. Challenge. Adagioir. Granary. Groove. Now accepting guest DJs for mythic raves, and who knew? Ruins could rock you. You shake your head at yourself, chuckling softly. Even in sacred spaces, humor finds its way. Nearby, a rusted iron hook juts from a stone pillar, once used to hang lanterns during nighttime rites. A leather pouch dangles from it, sealed with a sprig of dried barley. You untie the knot and find a single ear of barley, its grains plump and golden. You recognize the ritual token, the listener's ear given to those deemed true witnesses. You slip it into your pocket, feeling its weight as proof of your passage. You continue along the path until you reach a shallow stream where smooth pebbles create natural stepping stones. You step across, carefully, boots slipping on one slick rock before regaining your balance. You probably won't survive this crossing without a stunt worthy of an ancient epic. On the far bank, you find a faded mural painted on a moss-covered wall, figures weaving wheat into fabric, their arms moving in unison. You recall that textile production was central to ancient Greek economies, with wool and linen traded widely. Historians still argue whether mythic weaving scenes represent literal industry or metaphors for fate's tapestry. You crouch to brush moss from the mural, revealing intricate detail. Each thread-like grain pattern intertwines with human silhouettes. You trace the image with your fingertip, imagining the hands that painted it centuries ago under torchlight. A whisper tickles your ear. Weave your own tale. You nod, heart warmed by the gentle command. With the mural's message in mind, you rise and continue the path leading upward toward a gentle rise, crowned by a solitary oak. Its branches stretch wide, leaves rustling softly, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Beneath it lies a stone altar carved with concentric circles, perhaps the original gathering place before monoliths rose. You step into its shade, watching sunbeams flicker through foliage. From your satchel, you retrieve the leather-bound scroll and open it to the final blank page. You ponder the blankness as if it invites your own inscription. 3 jokes surface. Blank page syndrome. Ancient edition. Note to self. Remember to submit drafts on time, and would the origami gods accept this as a proposal? You stifle a laugh. Instead, you pull a twig from the ground, dip it into a small clay pot of evening dew. You collect it at the grove's altar and press it to the parchment. The dew spreads, marking a silver line that glows faintly. You close your eyes and whisper a phrase learned in the circle. Cycle affirmed, story continued. The dew ink etches words that shimmer before fading into permanence. You roll the scroll and tie it with a barley husk ribbon. The mural's advice lingers. You must weave this tale into the fabric of your world. You step away from the oak, feeling the woven connections of ritual, memory, and myth, binding you to Demeter's hidden harvest moon dance. The grove's shadows lengthen as dusk settles, and you return to the heart of the dance just as torches flare to life in a sudden spectacular burst. Flames gutter in rhythmic unison, each torch held by a dancer whose face glows with fervor, their silhouettes flickering against the surrounding stalks in a hypnotic swirl. You trudge forward, pulse quickening as the heat washes over you, chest rising and falling in sync with the dancer's breath. So many bodies moving as one, you probably won't survive this spectacle without your heart pounding like a smith's hammer. In ancient Greece, torchlit processions called lampadidromia were integral to religious festivals with relay races honoring deities like Prometheus and Dionysus. Excavations at Olympia unearthed torch fragments dated to the 8th century BCE, confirming how fire symbolized divine presence. Historians still argue whether these processions were competitive athletic events or primarily ritual observances. Tonight, the torches blur lines between sport worship and secret ceremony. The dancers form a spiraling vortex moving clockwise around a central fire pit, where embers churn in silent adoration. Their robes of woven grain sway like living totems, and each step they take crushes stray stalks in a crisp rustle that joins the torchlit symphony. You edge closer, each movement feeding your senses, eyes dazzled by flame, ears filled, with chant nostrils alive with smoky pine and scorched earth. A fringe claim surfaces a handful of folklorists. Insist Demeter's torch dances once summoned the hidden dryady forest nymphs who bless the woodland edges of grain fields. No classical author mentions nymphs at harvest rites. Yet the grove tonight thrums with an otherworldly presence that tangles belief and myth. You gulp and joke under your breath. Great. Now, I've RSVP'd to a nymph reunion I didn't even know existed. The chant crescendos. Gold born of flame yield to the earth's claim. A flautist perched on a stone pedestal plays a piercing refrain that threads through the drumbeat, carving sharp notes into the dense night air. You recall that flutes carved from bone were found in Neolithic sites nearly 10 millennia old, a testament to humanity's earliest desire to blend sound and ritual. Historians still argue whether bone flutes served purely musical roles or were tools of shamanic trance. Tonight you feel their power swirl around you. Suddenly the dancers break formation, scattering like startled birds, as a figure clad entirely in shadow steps into the firelight. Their faces hidden beneath a helm of barley stalks woven into a menacing mask, eyes gleaming with torch reflections. In one hand, they carry a wing-shaped fan of woven reeds, in the other, a torch crowned with poppy petals that release petals into the flames. The petals ignite in a rain of color, sparks fanning out like bursting fireworks. Your breath catches. The figure moves with deliberate grace, fanning the flames in a slow arc that sends waves of heat rippling through the clearing. 3 jokes clamber to your tongue. Is this the grand finale or a Renaissance Fair audition? I did not sign a waiver for flaming poppies. And can we get this choreographer's name, but the moment's majesty hushes your humor. The masked dancer's voice rises, echoing like a distant chant. Turn toward the flame, let shadow be tamed. The chorus responds, torches dipping and rising in choreographed waveforms. You feel the torch's heat kiss your skin, each spark singing of endings and new beginnings. You step forward into the spiral torch in hand, as if summoned by unseen will heart, echoing the drumbeat's primal call. At the spiral's core, the figure extinguishes their torch in a silver bowl of water, steam hissing like a serpent's sigh. The bowl's surface ripples, reflecting torchlight in kaleidoscopic shards. You kneel beside it and see your reflection flicker between mortal and mythic. Historians still argue whether reflective water rites in Eleusis were meant for purification or divination, but tonight you glimpse both your own soul and something ancient stirring beneath. The dancers close in torches lowered, forming a silent ring. The masked figure raises the empty torch handle skyward, and the flames above respond. 12 torches burst into synchronized motion, flames leaping and curving like phoenix wings. You stagger back, breath stolen, as the dancers set the clearing ablaze with light that casts every grainhead into molten gold. In that fiery crescendo, you sense time warp past present and future fold into one luminous moment. You hear Demeter's voice echo in your mind. This is the harvest's heart. You raise your torch higher, joining the chorus of light, feeling its warmth seep into your bones. Then, as swiftly as it began, the torches. Dim sparks rain to the earth in silent surrender, and the dancers collapse to their knees, torches guttering out one by one. A profound hush descends, so tangible you almost taste it, a world exhaling after a thunderous roar. Your legs tremble as you step backward, disoriented by the sudden stillness. Moonlight now pale and retreating glimmers on spent embers. You inhale lungs, craving air, heart still racing, an echo of flame. You probably won't survive this without reflecting on the paradox of fire, how it consumes and illuminates, destroys and renews. You tuck your torch's handle into your belt, aware that you carry a fragment of last night's conflagration, a spark of memory that will burn long after dawn. And as the dancers remain bowed in reverence, you lift your gaze to the treetops where torchlight mingles with starlight. Realizing you've witnessed the hidden harvest moon dance's final flourish, a spectacle woven from grain flame and the goddess's timeless power, you stand in the aftermath of the blaze, chest heaving in the cool night air. As the dancers remain kneeling, silhouettes bowed like rippling stalks in the breeze. The bonfire's embers glow faintly red beneath a drifting veil of smoke, and you trudge forward through the smoldering ring, each footstep stirring up motes of ash that dance like restless fireflies. You probably won't survive this quiet without feeling it settle in your bones like a shared breath. The dancers rise slowly, faces illuminated by waning embers, eyes reflecting gratitude and exhaustion. Their robes, once gleaming with woven grain, are dusted with pale ash, yet they move with a serene elegance as though reborn through flame. A hush falls so deep it hums a collective inhalation before release. You inhale too, tasting the faint tang of smoke and sweet chamomile drifting on a gentle breeze. In classical descriptions of the Thesmophoria, the final day involved purification rites, where participants washed in river waters to cleanse ritual impurities. Though no ancient text mentions fires of this magnitude, the symbolism of destruction followed by cleansing remains potent. Historians still argue whether such rites signified moral purification or seasonal transition. Tonight's smoldering remains feel like both a purification of earth and spirit. You kneel at the edge of the embers and touch a cool coal with your fingertip. It shatters under your touch, dispersing a tiny burst of powdery sparks that drift upward and vanish. A fringe notion crosses your mind. Some local tales spoke of sleeping embers that retained the goddess's presence until stoked by a worthy soul. No scholar has validated it yet. Holding that ember's echo in your hand feels like cradling possibility. You rise and walk toward a fallen banner of woven stalks. Its emblem, a sheaf encircled by a crescent still discernible beneath a film of ash. You brush it off, revealing gold threads beneath, and recall that banners were used in ancient processions to mark civic identity and divine favor. Historians still argue whether banners were practical rallying signs or primarily symbolic standards. This one bears both history and myth on its frayed edges. The dancers form a loose semicircle around you, and one steps forward offering a bowl of spring water warmed by embers. You accept it, bringing the bowl to your lips. The water is oddly warm, like memory distilled into liquid form, carrying traces of rosemary and mint. You sip, feeling it wash over you, cleansing ash from your throat and sealing the night's rites within your belly. 3 jokes surface as you swallow, hydration level divine. Is this spa package included? And next time, can we get cucumber slices on our eyes? You suppress them with a grateful smile. Above you, the harvest moon hangs low, its pale face veiled by drifting smoke, a silent witness to every flicker of flame and footfall of dance. You reach out as if to touch its surface, and your palm tingles with the echo of lunar gravity. In classical lore, the moon governed tides and agricultural cycles. Farmers charted sowing and reaping by its phases. Historians still argue whether lunar calendars truly improved yields or simply offered an easy celestial guide. Tonight, the moon's presence feels unequivocally vital. A soft flute melody begins the same plaintive tune you heard during the harvest hymn, its notes weaving through the night air like braided threads. The bard you met earlier emerges at the circle's edge, lyre in hand, and plays a gentle refrain. You close your eyes and let the melody cradle you, each note unfurling like a petal drifting on still water. The dancers respond with quiet sways, and you follow, body moving without thought, entranced by the lingering resonance of ritual. In the lanterns around the perimeter, small flames flicker to life once more, though no one reignites them. It's as if the grove remembers how to glow, an act of divine will rather than human tending. You marvel at how the trees and stones share their light with uncanny generosity. A scholarly aside floats through your mind. Historians still argue whether ancient rituals relied on human agency or were believed to be sustained by divine breath. Here you witness both in concert. You wander through the circle, greeting each dancer with a nod, sharing silent thanks for their performance. One presses a woven token into your hand, a small stalk braided into a loop. This morning band symbolizes release of the night's intensity and acceptance of dawn's return. You slip it onto your wrist, feeling its gentle weight. The chorus subsides and a final hush falls. You lift your gaze skyward, meeting the harvest moon's serene countenance. In that moment, you understand the ritual's heart, to dance with shadow and flame, to embrace endings as seeds for new beginnings, and to honor the earth's cycles with every breath and step. A lone owl hoots from a distant olive grove, an old friend returning your presence. You inhale deeply, tasting the moonlit air, and feeling the grove exhale beside you. You probably won't survive this stillness without carrying its echo into your dreams. With the dancers fading into the silent fields, you step beyond the embers, the ashes crunching softly underfoot, and walk toward the promise of first light, cradling the night's magic within you. You emerge from the grove into a clearing bathed in pale moonlight, where the barley fields stretch toward a horizon brushed with silver haze. You trudge forward, senses alive to the soft hush of wind. Through grain, each stalk bowing as if offering farewell. You probably won't survive this exit without feeling your chest tighten, a bittersweet ache of endings and promises. Ahead, a solitary monolith stands at the field's edge, its surface etched with a spiral of grain and stars. You recognize the glyphs from earlier stones, but here they spiral outward, guiding your gaze skyward. In classical astronomy, Greek scholars used spirals carved in stone to map celestial movements, theorizing that the stars traced cyclical paths like harvest cycles, a fact confirmed by descriptions in Ptolemy's Almagest. Historians still argue whether these stone markers served practical observational purposes or functioned as sacred symbols. Tonight, they feel both. A gentle breeze stirs the barley at your feet, and you kneel to touch the spiral's base, feeling cool stone beneath trembling fingertips. A fringe theory whispers that these spirals align with lunar standstills, marking rare celestial events. No modern survey has corroborated it yet. The spiral seems to hum beneath your palm, an electric pulse that echoes the moon's waning glow. You crack a grin and joke to yourself, if only my GPS could handle ancient waypoints. You stand and step back, watching moonbeams dance across the spiral, throwing shadows that resemble rippling fields. 3 jokes float through your mind. Note to self: moonbeam-proof sunscreen. Next time they should have added a billboard, and Guess this was prehistoric crop art. You stifle laughter. The moment feels too profound for levity. Above the harvest moon hangs low its silver disk mirrored in your wide eyes. You recall that lunar calendars were vital to ancient farmers governing planting and harvesting. Pliny the Elder even recommended sowing by moon phase to maximize yield. Historians still argue whether such astrological agriculture improved output or perpetuated superstition, but tonight the moon's guidance feels undeniably real. You turn your gaze upward, tracing constellations shimmering like scattered grains, Orion's belt, the Pleiades, and the faint curve of the Milky Way. Classical poets hailed the Pleiades as the seven sisters whose rising signaled the start of harvest. Hesiod himself wrote of their importance in works and days. Historians still debate whether Hesiod's observations reflected actual farming calendars or poetic license, but you feel their ancient wisdom pulsing overhead. A soft voice, Demeter's own whispers on the breeze. Carry the moon's counsel into dawn. You close your eyes, letting her words settle in your bones. In your pocket, the barley ear token shifts gently, as though nodding assent. You take a deep breath and let moonlit air fill your lungs, anchoring the ritual's final magic within. You take a measured step forward, letting the spiral of stars guide your path out of the field. Each stride carries the memory of torchlight and song of sacred waters and secret dances. You pass into the open where the land levels and the barley parts to reveal a simple wooden gate carved with a single word in ancient script, Eucharistia Thanksgiving. You remember that offerings of grain and fruit were acts of gratitude binding community and cosmos. Historians still argue whether festivals like Thesmophoria centered on civic unity or personal piety. Standing before this gate, you understand it was both. You push the gate open, its hinges creaking like a final exhalation. On the other side lies a simple dirt road, moonlit and inviting. You pause, hand on the gatepost, and look back at the field, your secluded amphitheater of myth and memory. The monolith's spiral seems to smile, ripples of stone echoing your own heartbeat. You step through, leaving footprints in soft earth, each print a testament to your passage. You carry with you the runic seed, now sprouted into memory, the sickle's promise of new beginnings, and the spiral's celestial counsel. You probably won't survive this passage without a quiet vow to honor the cycles you've witnessed, to carry Demeter's gift into your waking world. Now, as you walk that moonlit road toward dawning light, let your breath slow and your thoughts soften. Each inhalation brings back the night's rhythm, whispers of grain, echoes of flute and drum, the hush of ancient stones, and each exhalation releases the weight of the world, allowing calm to settle in your chest. You feel the cool earth beneath your boots, steady and unyielding, supporting you as you drift between waking and sleep. Your eyelids grow heavy, fluttering like moth wings drawn to a fading flame. The distant fields lie still, their golden stalks resting beneath a pale sky. You carry their hush within a gentle resonance that lingers in your bones. The spiral of stars etched in stone guides your dreams, weaving starlight through your mind's tapestry, reminding you that every ending births a new beginning. In the quiet, you sense Demeter's presence still beside you, a warm reassurance that cycles endure beyond seasons and that gratitude nourishes both earth and soul. The barley ear token on your wrist rests against your skin like a soft heartbeat, a timeless promise pulsing in rhythm with your own. Let your thoughts drift like fallen petals on a gentle stream. Remember the hidden dances, the choral echo, the flicker of torchlight, the taste of moonlit fruit, and the hush of dew-kissed stones. These memories settle into you like seeds taking root, destined to bloom in the fertile soil of your dreams. As you close your eyes, imagine the harvest moon's silver glow fading into pastel dawn, the fields at rest under morning's embrace. Carry its quiet magic with you, each breath a benediction, each heartbeat a tribute to cycles lived and stories told. Sleep now cradled by earth and sky, by myth and memory, by the gentle whisper of Demeter's hidden harvest moon dance. Let her blessings guide you through dream's orchard, where each step is a step home.